Hi, I want you to think of poverty. I want you to think the definition of it. And now that you're thinking about it, let me read what I found in Investopedia. Poverty refers to the state or condition in which people or communities lack the financial resources and essentials for a minimum standard of living. Poverty is an individual concern as well as a broader social problem, so this includes you and I. On the individual or household level, not being able to make ends meet can lead to a range of physical and mental issues. At the social level, I hope I said that right, high poverty rates can be a damper on economic growth and be associated with problems like crime, unemployment, urban decay, education, and poor health. Alabama is part of the top 10 states with the highest poverty levels in the United States, with a 17.6% of poverty, according to an article from Forbes. Now, let me read this, that way I can start talking. From the University of Alabama. The biggest area with poverty in Alabama is found within the Black Belt area, which is formed by a total of 25 counties in the southern, central, and western areas. During the recent Great Recession from 2007 to 2009, the number of people going through poverty in the Black Belt region increased by roughly 51,000 across the counties. During the recovery period from 2015 to 2020, the Black Belt population in poverty decreased by roughly 38,000 people. And this is about the entire population of Florence, Alabama. So, as I read that, I hope you notice that there is a lot of poverty here in Alabama. And you might think, well, if they're going through poverty, why aren't they finding a job? Why are they not doing something to change that? Well, it is a little hard as an individual for them to do that, because sometimes they don't have the transport they need to the jobs they could find that are better than the ones they currently have. There is a lot of honest people that would probably like to have a job in big towns or cities like Montgomery or Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, what else is there? Huntsville, places like that. Not even that big, more like Calera, Alabaster. You get my point. Well, they don't have cars sometimes. They don't have a way of transportation. They don't have a way to get there. And here in Alabama, we don't have much of a public transportation. Unless you're in Birmingham, you might found buses. Back in the day, there used to be the train, but after the 1950s, that stopped. After the Civil War, this was a lot of time before 1950s, but after the Civil War, all the way to the 1950s, the train was one of the main sources of transport here in the United States and in Alabama. It was all over the country, and it was utilized for many things, not only for passengers, but also with to transport things like coal, iron, timber, cars, stuff like that. It was used for many things until this day. Now, we don't have the passenger train anymore as a public thing. We only have it more for touristic purposes, which is Amtrak. Amtrak goes from Anniston to Birmingham, and it also stops in Tuscaloosa, and then it goes all the way to New Orleans. And it has other routes, but it's not really for people to go to work or for people to use it as a daily thing or as a daily source of transportation. We still have the railroads that we used to have back in the day. For example, there's one here in Clanton, or it passes by Clanton. It goes from Birmingham all the way to Mobile, and those tracks are still being used, but it's only used by companies like CSX. Even though the trails are still owned by the government and it belongs to the people of the United States, it's no longer being used for them. It's no longer being utilized for them. And I have a map here. Let me show it to y'all real quick. So as I said, the blue line is Amtrak. Amtrak comes from Georgia. It enters from Georgia right here, and it goes to Birmingham. I'm sorry, I skipped Anniston. It goes to Anniston, then it stops in Birmingham, then it goes to Tuscaloosa, and then it keeps going. The route that I was talking earlier is the pink one. The one that is only being used by private companies like CSX to transport stuff, not people. It goes from Birmingham. It crosses all these small little towns all the way to Mobile. Now, imagine if that route was used for people again, for people to be able to do their daily things like get a job in another place, and that way they don't have to purchase a car and they don't have to pay gas, and it won't have to be as expensive. Now, for me to support this, I have this right here. In 2021, Biden was telling his plan about investing $85 billion and the train networks and the buses, I believe, but it was mainly the train networks. But he was talking about more towards the city, like big cities like Los Angeles and New York, Chicago, and places like that. And he did do that. There it was $85 billion towards that, but it was mainly to make longer the trains that already exist in cities like the ones I said, like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, and all these places. But it was not really being used for the people that really needs it. For example, the people from the Black Belt region who still needs it till this day. One day, this is a quick story time. One day I was sitting in my kitchen and the train was passing by my house because I live beside the tracks, and a bunch of workers were in the very back of the train, like on the very last cabin. They added a cabin to a not a public train. It's owned by a private company called CSX. I see them here all the time, and it had a cabin for passengers. It had it had seats and it had everything, and it was for workers. So that made me thought that you can always add them to the back of the cabins, because the trails are still being owned by the people of the United States or by the government. So with that being said, I believe that a way to solve this problem that we have as a community could be by using the train the way it was used back in the 1950s, and it stopped. This also would minimize the pollution and the greenhouse gases emitted by cars. This would minimize the traffic you see every day in the city, and this would also help the community, not only the Black Belt region, but Alabama itself, like the entire state. So what do you think? Do you agree with me, or do you think I'm wrong?